Now it's time for our U.S. Report regular, former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, thank you so much for joining us here. Now, let's kick off here talking about Hunter Biden. What are your reaction to the plea deal, and how do you think this is going to play out at all, if at all, with the Joe Biden campaign?
Yeah, James, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. I enjoy watching the show as I sit here and wait to do my piece. So it's a great little piece from Senator Kennedy. Anyway, look, I'm sort of taking a wait and see attitude here for this reason. Keep in mind, the plea deal relates to some things that really weren't the most inflammatory. They deal with his purchase of the gun, which is a big deal, but it's not, in the greater scheme of things, going to move the needle politically. And then there was the tax thing that everybody knew about. He didn't file taxes for 2017, 2018. He admitted it, et cetera, right? None of this pertains to the stuff that is really sort of interesting, which is the payments by the Ukrainians to him, if there were any, and certainly to the next step, payments by the Ukrainians or the Russians even to his dad. That investigation, while it's done at the Department of Justice, apparently will continue now on Capitol Hill. So the short answer to your question is this: if this is all there is, I think it's a real snoozer and probably doesn't move the needle. But I'm not sure yet that this is all there is.
And let's move on then to Donald Trump and his legal woes here. I saw this week that they've set a trial date in August. Now, this seems incredibly quick to deal with those documents that were found in that raid at Mar-a-Lago. What does that tell us, Mick?
James, it tells us this is a jurisdiction where they want to move quickly, and they can move quickly. That being said, the right to a speedy trial, which every American citizen has under our Constitution, is possessed by the accused, not by the government. The government cannot force a speedy trial on an accused. So Donald Trump possesses this right to speedy trial. So if he wants to slow things down, he's more than welcome to do that and able to do that. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. There's going to be several pretrial motions regarding evidence. There's going to be a bunch of pretrial motions regarding, say, the judge. Keep in mind, the judge is a Trump appointee. There's a lot of folks at the Department of Justice and on the left who think she's not able to serve impartially as the judge in this case. And there's probably going to be additional motions regarding the makeup of the jury. Keep in mind, under our system, the jury has to be unanimous in order to convict and send somebody to jail, which means that just one holdout could save Donald Trump a trip to jail. So both sides are going to be spending a lot of time picking that jury. So this is going to go very, very slow. I don't know anybody who's ever practiced law at all who believes this is actually going to take place on August 14th.
Well, that's interesting you say that, but then one of the things that we talk about a lot on this program, Mick, is all of the other trials and legal issues that he's going to be dealing with all through primary season. So does this add another sort of wrinkle to his calendar and his planning in terms of planning his campaign against Ron DeSantis for the primary, for the nomination?
If he's going to take this seriously, which you assume he's going to do, right? The Manhattan thing is kind of a joke. This is deadly serious. This is possible jail for the rest of his life. So if he's going to take it seriously, it might impact it should impact his schedule, and the August 14th date, which again, I don't think is going to happen, but that is really, really close to the first planned Republican primary debate. There's another step here, James, that's not getting a lot of coverage, which is that over the course of the next several weeks, the government will start to slowly show their hand to the defense. That's required under our Constitution. The government must show the accused every single piece of evidence they have in advance of the trial date. That started today. Now there's some indication that maybe there's more than one audio tape out. That was news here in the United States. You're going to expect a slow little drip, drip, drip of additional information, additional facts, additional evidence between now and the trial date itself. And Trump will have to deal with that as he's also running for president.
Indeed. All right, let's move on now to President Biden and China. Now, he said something on Tuesday night which I thought was extraordinary. He called Xi Jinping a dictator, and that's fair enough because that's absolutely accurate. But then he said that the spy balloon that crossed into the United States and was eventually shot down, I think after it kind of drifted off the coast sort of near you, that it was just an embarrassment for Xi, and that there was really no big deal there. Walk us through what Joe Biden said here, and does this fill you with confidence about his ability to manage this relationship with China?
Yeah, no, this, I think in 2 or 3 sentences, this sort of encapsulates why so many people on the left and the right are worried about Joe Biden, why so many of our friends overseas are worried about Joe Biden. What he said was, I talked to Xi, and she was embarrassed because he didn't know anything about it, which is really bad for a dictator. There's so many things that's wrong in those 2 or 3 sentences, James. It's hard to know where to start. First of all, he believes Xi. Okay. He believes Xi when he tells him, look, I didn't know about this and I'm really embarrassed. Why would you believe that if you really think the person's a dictator? Is stunning to me. He also says that, Xi didn't know, which is that's not possible. So the fact that and calling him a dictator in public is just, well, it might be accurate, really isn't good for international relations. So there's so much wrong with that statement. In fact, every single sentence is wrong. It epitomizes in 10 seconds why so many people are worried about Joe Biden's ability to do this job.
Well, and that comes back around to what we started out talking about, which is all of this question about the Biden family and the influence of Chinese money. Now, I mean, there's sort of two options and neither are good here. One is that his mental capacities are failing him and he doesn't understand why what he said there is such a bad idea. But then there's also going to be lingering over some people's minds, especially Republicans, this notion that possibly, the Bidens are in hock to Chinese entities and maybe trying to shift their message.
And that last one's going to be very interesting over the course of this summer, because Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa says that he's talked to a whistleblower who has at least 2 audio tapes regarding payments to Joe Biden while he was the vice president. That's the kind of stuff that sets this country on fire. It's just unbelievable if that is actually the case. Hunter Biden is one thing. We all know he's a drug addict, taking money from foreign governments, while sleazy isn't illegal. It looks really bad, but it's not against the law. If you're a sitting vice president, you're getting payments from foreign governments. That's a big deal. So that's the type of thing we worry about. Keep in mind, there's another option. Not only that he could be sort of being held hostage by a foreign government, or that he's getting on in age and no longer competent to do the job. There's the possibility he was just not that bright in the first place. Keep in mind, this is somebody who was described by another Democrat senator years ago as perhaps the most stupid person ever to serve in the United States Senate. He's famously stupid. So there's that type of attitude about Joe Biden here in the country. And the fact that his poll numbers continue to be very, very poor tell you, James, that even though inflation's doing a little better, the economy's doing okay, the job market is actually pretty good, the fact that Joe Biden's poll numbers are still miserable tell you that even if they like him, a lot of folks don't want him to be president again.
There's a wonderful anecdote in an essay the New Republic did about Joe Biden in 2001 when he was head of the Committee on Foreign Relations, where after 9/11 he suggested sending $100 million to Iran as a no hard feelings sort of gesture. And that just shows you, I think, everything you need to know about Biden's foreign policy. But let's just finally have a look at Trump and DeSantis. Donald Trump has taken a huge swipe at Ron DeSantis. Have a listen to this.
Ron has always been a loser. In fact, he was going to lose the election in record numbers until I endorsed him. So it was an artificial win. The very stupid and little respected, China-loving Club for No Growth, which has been backing Ron DeSanctimonious as his poll numbers have been absolutely crashing, has just spent some of the rhino money they have accumulated on an ad campaign.
And Ron DeSantis isn't taking this lying down. Have a look at this.
To support Trump as a GOP nominee.
So what I would say is this. When you are saying that Cuomo did better on COVID than Florida did, you are revealing yourself to just be full of it. Nobody believes that.
Mick, what do you make of this? It's getting serious now, isn't it?
It is, James, on that latter point about Governor Cuomo. I actually was talking to some friends in Washington this week and talked to some Georgia friends of mine, Republicans, who say that there's no chance that Donald Trump can win Georgia because he said something similar in that race. He said that Stacey Abrams, the Democrat candidate for governor, would be a better governor than Brian Kemp, the ultimate Republican governor. So Trump's got a lot of those problems. He's sort of eroded a lot of his Republican base in these critical states. No one believes Donald Trump when he says that Cuomo did a better job than DeSantis. No one believes Donald Trump when he says that Stacey Abrams would be a better governor than Brian Kemp. But at the same time, those types of attacks that you just saw have been effective. DeSantis has not been able to get much traction. We don't have a lot of polling data out of Iowa yet. Keep in mind, a lot of the polling data that you see there, a lot of the polling data we see here is national polling data, which you can take and throw out the window. It might show you some general trends, but we elect state by state, even in a primary, and Iowa goes first. So we're going to wait and see if DeSantis can get some traction in Iowa, or if another candidate can get traction in Iowa. The test there is if you start to see Donald Trump attacking another candidate, it means that other candidate is getting traction. Right now, he's attacking DeSantis because DeSantis is his primary challenger. If that changes, he'll change.
Finally, Mick, I want to just ask you about a guy I keep hearing a lot of people chattering about on both the right and the left, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's got the elites very rattled, and I just thought this was interesting what he had to say about American foreign policy earlier this week.
FDR met with Stalin. JFK met with Khrushchev. Nixon met with Brezhnev. Reagan met with Gorbachev. Can't Biden meet with Putin? Can't we at least begin a conversation? Do we now have such a distorted and desperate view of the other side that we won't even speak to them, to see conflict as inevitable?
Now, this is getting some resonance in some circles, and I thought it was almost a very Trumpian line on foreign policy and a sort of an isolationist line, but coming from far left rather than a right perspective. What do you make of RFK and the game that he is playing right now?
Yeah, right now he's getting some attention, James, not a lot, a little bit more than you would expect against an incumbent Democrat. Keep in mind, Robert Kennedy is running as a Democrat against Joe Biden. And the polling data you see, again, it doesn't make any difference because it's a national poll, is that he's got like a 20% number, something like that. I don't think Robert F. Kennedy has a chance to be the Democrat nominee. What I'm looking for is this. If you see that number start to tick up north of, say, 25 or 30%, that's going to be a giant red flag to the Democrats that Biden has a Democrat problem. And what that means is they have an independent swing vote Democrat problem. The folks who always vote Democrat are going to vote for Joe Biden, but the folks in the middle may be indicating that they're tired of Joe Biden and are looking for something else. The person who's watching this race the most closely right now is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. And if you see Kennedy continue moving up, you might see Gavin Newsom move into the race, even with Joe Biden there.
Mick, I've been thinking a lot along the same lines. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Always a pleasure, and we'll see you next week.